Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I am from Japan Massive Open Online Education Promotion Council. My name is Shirai. Today, I would like to talk to you about sustainable education for future. I hope that my presentation is informative to all of you. The world was hit by COVID-19, and this brought many changes, not just in Japan, but throughout the world. Many universities in Japan had to close down because of COVID-19, and university campuses were locked and stayed locked for many years now. COVID-19 hit Japan in April 2020. So here you can see some stats regarding April 2020. Most universities had face-to-face classes before COVID-19. Of course, there were a few universities that had provided online classes, but the number was quite limited. But because of COVID-19, the universities in Japan had no other option but to refurbish their systems and also provide training and education to their faculty members and also staff members in order to move from offline to online. And that actually caused a lot of chaos in the beginning. However, that confusion lasted for a short period of time, and only a few months later, COVID-19 hit Japan. Many universities in Japan started to provide online and hybrid classes and courses. Now, this has been the case during the past 1+ years, 1 or 1.6 months. And many students actually had a lot of complaints. They made it to the university, but had to stay home and take classes online and could not make new friends and so forth. However, social distancing measures and also various quarantine measures were effectively in place, and now many universities started to provide online and offline classes in a hybrid format. Since I'm on this topic, I would like to share with you some of the statistical figures related to Japanese universities. There are about 2.6 million university students in Japan. This is the largest number in history. And of course, Japanese population is on a decrease. But here you can see that on average, every year we have about 1 million and about 50%, 50+% proceed into higher education. So that's about 600,000. And out of them, four-year college students number 500,000. There are many different universities in Japan. There are two-year college, community colleges, and as well as four-year universities. And because of population decrease, the number of universities and colleges are also decreasing. Under COVID-19, many Japanese university students could not find part-time jobs. The restaurants or the shops that they used to work as part-timers closed down or went bankrupt. And so a lot of students had to have financial difficulties. Of course, the government started to provide emergency subsidies, but COVID-19 did have significant blow to university students in Japan. Now, moving back to online classes, I believe that a lot of content were accumulated while providing online courses, and universities started to share those online content and resources. And new courses and classes started to be offered using online platforms. For example, mathematical or numerical data science would be a good example. And those resource and class exchanges started to take off in Japan. And we see a lot of close cooperation between universities and businesses, and universities and other education institutions. And I believe that those active interactions and exchanges have become possible thanks to online platforms. And now credit sharing is also possible through these platforms. If you think about online classes, there are many different types, and I believe that we are at a crossroads where we need to further refurbish online platforms in line with future changes. J-MOOC, or Japanese MOOC, has been in existence for about 10 plus years, and you can see from here, you can see that there are many universities nowadays providing online courses instead of just offline in-class courses. Some of them are provided in a VOD format, some in real-time interactive ways. But anyways, these two are the most common modes of education nowadays under COVID-19. And live or real-time interactive or on-demand courses have become common, and I believe that textbooks as well as learning materials are being offered online as well. For example, in the past, we saw similar online education provisioned via OCW of MIT. But nowadays, education material sharing via online platforms has become common. I believe that under COVID-19, a lot of activities started to take place in the field of global MOOC. So when I say activities, I would mean the number of users and the number of learners and subscribers to MOOC started to increase. For example, here you see Coursera, edX, which are all the US MOOCs. These are some of the leading MOOCs in the world. And compared to 2019, pre-COVID, you can see that the number in 2020 increased by 3 times. On average, 2 times, up to 3 times. Future Learn is a MOOC of the UK. And you can also see that the number of MOOC subscribers for that platform also increased exponentially. Now, throughout the world, there are about 100 million to 200 million subscribers to MOOCs. Now, MOOC has become commonplace. Here you can see the number of learners that signed up with MOOC platforms in 2020. Before COVID-19, you can see that learners mostly took courses that were practical and work-related. For example, computer science and computer programming courses or business-related lectures were most popular. However, because of COVID-19, now more and more learners are taking MOOC courses that have to do with personal development. Of course, there are business-related courses that are still popular, but art, design, and more personal hobby-related courses are widely popular amongst learners, not necessarily work-related courses. And we have liberal arts, humanities courses that started to take off during COVID-19 over the MOOC platform. Again, here you can see J-MOOC or Japanese MOOC. During the past 10 years, you can see the changes. And you can see the YTD figure for each year. And as of today, there are about 1.5 million learners taking courses using J-MOOC. In April 2020, you can see that the number of MOOC learners started to increase. And in just a few months, tens of thousands of learners were newly added to J-MOOC. So here you can see the type of courses that are being taken over K-MOOC. Here, several dozens of classes, or up to 100 courses, are constantly being broadcast over K-MOOC. You can see that we also have AI-related courses on K-MOOC. We have theory on AI and also advanced courses on AI. So depending on the background of the learners, there are many different levels of difficulties of the courses available over K-MOOC. Now, on this slide, you can see the current status of K-MOOC. In the past, the courses on K-MOOC were offered for free, available to anyone with interest. The courses were offered in Japanese mostly. But nowadays, we realized that there are many learners from outside of Japan also taking courses over K-MOOC. And here you see SPOC, or Small Private Online Courses. And these courses are mostly offered as a paid content, and is available for paid members only. These courses can be offered by different universities or by K-MOOC. And for different learners, we have LMS using which the learning management is done. Now, here we have universities, businesses, and other organizations that have demands for learning. And K-MOOC actually provides a perfect answer to them because it has different content available on its platform, so that anyone who's interested can access and benefit from the content. We also have applications to control the courses, and those applications make it possible to take those courses from various learning environment. And we also have various learning platforms available online. And it's very important to make them interoperable. So when I say interoperable, it means integrating different systems so that individuals, regardless of which platform that they're using, can take courses and exchange learning materials, and also enjoy cooperation and exchanges with other learners. So in a way, I think that interoperability is necessary, and this would require something like universal design and many other tools to expand the horizon of online learning and electronic learning is necessary. I would say that these tools would be like next generation digital learning tools. And we need standardization as well. We have a group called IMS, IMS Global. It's a US standardization organization. My organization has been very active in the activities of IMS. And together, we've been working on providing standard environment for learning platforms. So on this slide, you can see IMS standardization for technologies. Some of the learners can have their learning history profiles interconnected, and LMS, or learning management system, can also be brought on board so that the data that's available can be safely shared and exchanged with other platforms. And if you have those interoperable and standardized platforms, that means that you can also share resources and different materials and information. For example, credit sharing will also become possible. And learners learning history can also be shared, and grades and transcripts of learners can be shared. And we can also have common standard for learner assessments. It would be similar to credit sharing of different offline universities. I believe that all in all, standardization is important, and I believe that it's being worked on at the moment to enhance interoperability of different platforms. In Japan, I think that we've been exploring the idea of standardization, and in line with it, a lot of cooperation is being made to that end. And I believe that such a collaboration in this area of education is important so as to enhance our platforms into a next generation platforms. And I believe that different experiments are being done in this area for teaching assistance system. Universities are studying standardization and student rosters and student grades. We have a lot of data that is being generated, and those can also be shared for learners' benefits. And here we have Learning e-portal, and this is part of LMS. And that is something that we can also share. And digital e-learning materials can also be shared. Here on the far right, you see something called MEX CBT. It's a computer-based testing system. In the past, different universities would conduct separate testings, but in this time and age, by having one standard system, we can provide testing to the learners and compile the data in a more standardized way. I believe that QTI, it says, so these are like the list of test questions. So they can be also compiled in a standard method. And learning record score, that's also like learners' transcripts. Those can also be standardized and shared amongst different platforms. And we also have XAPI. This is another example of standardization different from IMS. But anyways, I believe that a lot of efforts are being explored to bring more standardized services in lifelong education. I believe that this is one example up on the slide. Here you have something called Open Batch, which is offered as part of IMS's standard framework. We call it digital badge as well. It's a electronic transcript or digital transcript of students and learners. It shows what the learners have learned, what courses they have taken, and those information can be standardized and shared with other education institutions. And learners can look at the digital badges and look at and realize the courses and see for themselves the courses that they have taken, and that digital badge can grant rather can be recognized by other education institutions in different countries. So when the learner tries to find a job or do something afterwards, completing those programs, then those digital badges can be quite useful as a transcript and also education history. So those information can also be shared amongst different organizations. So far, I've talked about the standardization efforts. Now, I'd like to focus more on the education system itself. I believe that the primary responsibility of education institutions is to enhance the competencies and skills of learners. I'm sure that no one would disagree with that. I think that in the past we thought that the education institution's primary role is to just impart knowledge and information. However, I think that nowadays it's all about enhancing the overall competencies of the learners. That really counts. So, as I talked about it just now, digital badge can show the type of learning path and the courses a particular learner has taken over the years, and those can speak volume about the overall capabilities and competencies of that learner. And I believe that another thing that we have to work on as education providers is enhancing communication skills of learners. I believe that communication skills is important to converse with others and also persuade others. And this is one skill that has to be constantly trained and educated. And by enhancing communication skills of the learners, I believe that we can contribute to forming a decent community. I know that it is awkward to say good community and bad community, but I think that in order to form a good community, it's of utmost importance to have good communication skills as well as good education systems. I think that all these elements are intertwined, and this leads to my second point about university education. I think that graduate programs and undergraduate programs and degree programs of typical universities in the past had their own limitations. The number one challenge would be that learners would be locked in to those particular university system. Of course, there won't be any issue if you make it to a renowned university with good undergrad programs, because you will be able to join crème de la crème and receive top-notch education and training. So in order to get those elite education, that entails a lot of cost. But nowadays, we have to have affordable training and education for all. And nowadays, there is only so much that one university can offer to learners. So I think that openness is critical. And here you can see number 3 and 4, diversity and analysis on the education program and learning process. Depending on the student's background, for example, depending on when the time of their entrance into the universities, the time that they take classes, and the time that they take their days off. I think that depending on those various factors, there were in the past a lot of limitations in the provision of education. But now, as we would all concur, we need to provide education and learning opportunities regardless of time and space. In that sense, I believe that learning and education management is critical in order to maintain high quality education. And I believe that accreditation would be important. Now, universities and education institutions can seek standardization and, based on an accreditation system, provide joint education programs to their students. Moving on, I believe that a student and learner assessment is very important. We need to understand and analyze what effect the courses and classes would have on the learners. And in doing so, AI can shed a lot of light. All in all, for a peaceful development of the humanity, I believe that equity in education is important. I believe that education is the only answer to create an equal and peaceful society. So we need to have education provided by local communities and nearby societies, as well as international communities. And that understanding is important in this day and age. And this brings me back to communication. Communication in that aspect is very important. I think that at all levels of education, interaction and communication is important amongst learners and between learners and communities and learners and teachers about culture, social structure, politics, economy, and so forth. I think that having deep understanding about each other via communication is important, and this will only contribute to further enhancing the humanity. And in doing so, e-learning is critical. There are many different modes of e-learning at the moment. We have standardization efforts, and we also have SNS that can also contribute to e-learning. We also have something called ELSI, ethical, legal, and social issues. So education should touch upon those topics of ELSI, and of course, we should not leave out SDGs. We need to contribute to realizing SDGs through education. So, when providing learners with education and classes, we have to think about how they can help them level up in terms of realizing SDGs. Another thing I'd like to emphasize is that we would have to go beyond the barriers of universities and promote free and open learning communities. And the learners need to be empowered to lead and initiate learning depending on their preferences, their needs, and their demands. And they should be given the opportunity to interact with other learners and communicate with other learners. And the education system that we need to develop would be the system that supports those learners. For example, micro-credential. That is one good example of the efforts that we should be making. Whether it's a university, a region, or the entire international community, I believe that exchanges and cooperation is of primary importance to enhance our capabilities, and also to create a world where we can enjoy better and heightened mutual understanding. That is something that education can provide, and that way I think that we can open up a brighter future through education. With that, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you for your attention.